Hey, welcome back, everybody. John and Alain here from Fairwinds Training and Development. Alain, it's been a while.
Absolutely, it has.
Yeah, it's this whole move thing for me certainly got in the way of things. I'm not actually fully in my office yet, but I did find this setting with one of my favorite pictures behind it. So thought this would be a good starting spot for us. I know the move itself was busy, lots of other things going on in my life as well. And what
Yeah.
about you? What's going on for you?
What isn't going on with me might be the better question, John. It's that time of year for me, like it is for most of the people out there, certainly the clients that I'm talking to, my friends and families. It's that time of year where kind of so many things collide. Kids are back to school. Certainly in our world, it's a much busier time professionally. As I've alluded to a number of times, anyone who's watched or listened to any of our stuff so far, I'm a bit of a chronic over volunteerer at times. And this is that time of year for me where all of these different things are colliding and inevitably, not to be surprised, I always hit a little bit of a wall at this point of the year, which again, so many of us do. And which I find really interesting because probably the program that I've taught most over the past 6 months has been our time management, our increasing personal effectiveness course.
Mm.
And I joke sometimes, I call it the do as I say, not as I do module.
Yeah.
But it's actually been really helpful and really beneficial for me. How often I've been teaching that course has allowed me, as I've got so much going on, to dig into it a little bit bigger and really look at, am I really living what I'm preaching to other people? And when I found maybe I'm not quite all
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
time. And I do need to regroup and visit so many of these things that we talk about when we are trying to help other people manage their time.
Well, and it's funny you say that. Leanne used to say to me, it's amazing you teach this because you're not very good at it. And she was referencing time management. You know what?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I probably would have agreed with her, but I've gotten really tight on just a couple of the things we teach in that program. And they have helped me. They've helped me in the last few weeks. Like you said,
Yeah.
we ramp up professionally after Labor Day. And this year's been no different. We're ramped up again, few new programs starting, and I had to do some content development, some delivery, some proposals, lots of stuff going on. And I found myself really having to rely on a lot of the tools that we teach to make that happen. Now, I'm happy
Yeah.
to report I just got off a call actually not too long ago, and I've met every stage and gate that I've needed to at this point, but it wouldn't be without some of those tools. So I'm
Yeah.
curious from your point of view, because you have, I know, just taught this at least 2 or 3 times that I'm aware of. What's standing out for you as something that you think our audience could benefit from?
Yeah. The big one for me, John, and interestingly enough, when I'm in a classroom yesterday and I'm asking people in the room, what are your biggest leadership challenge? The one that I actually heard the most was delegation,
Mm.
delegating. And it's the same for me. Delegating has always been something that's been a bit of a challenge for me, but through learning more about it and through really focusing on how we talk about the importance of delegation and everything that goes into it, it's probably the thing that's kept my head above water more than anything. Delegating, cutting off and kind of chunk blocking,
Yep.
tackling these kind of things and handing it off to other people. Not always easy to do, but something that I've certainly, again, through what we teach, I had been able to get a lot better at it. And really the challenge, and again, this is the challenge that I talk about quite a bit when I'm teaching the course, is that it's almost that internal need that I have to be that go-to guy. I want to be the one who gets it done, who has all the answers, who maybe selfishly gets credit for
Mhm.
the results. That I've become aware that drives me a little bit and that
Right.
gets in the way of me delegating. Probably the biggest thing that I've been able to do lately is, really just become aware of that,
Yeah.
realize that I can't and I shouldn't do everything. And I'm also not, whether professionally, whether it's in my volunteer life, I'm not helping my team members either. I'm stunting their growth. I'm not developing capacity in them. So that's really, for me, that's been the biggest thing that I've been focusing on over the last few weeks is delegating more of those things that are on my task list.
Awesome. It's a big word.
Yeah.
And it can mean so many things. I've got so many things going through my own mind at this point. I'm just curious if you can help some of our audience understand, what does it really mean to delegate effectively? Like, how would they go about it?
Absolutely. The first step is, and again, we teach this in our program as well. And I went through this, like I said, personally, when starting to dive into it for my own benefit, is looking at where I am spending my time, where I'm struggling at times to keep my head above water. I've got all these things happening. I had to look a little bit more kind of strategically at where I'm spending my time. And we get back to those 4 quadrants matrix of Tubby's. And yes, I'm firefighting. And then spending a decent amount of quality time on planning, and I am checking those boxes for all of my clients. But it's the distraction, those items that are, they're not necessarily important. They might be urgent, but urgent to someone else, not necessarily urgent to me. So by doing that, I've been able to identify kind of those tasks that, you know what? I can delegate this. This isn't necessarily contributing to those high payoff activities, those priority tasks that I do. First, figuring out what those tasks are. And again, looking strategically at what can I give to someone else. And obviously, it's got to be something that there's a lot of things to keep in mind when delegating effectively. I don't want to just delegate the bad jobs and keep all the good ones for me. So I'm keeping that in my mind. I want to try to delegate as evenly as I can amongst my team members. I don't want to create a sense of balance. Why is all the work going to this person? Why are they getting the opportunity to do these things? I'm not. And I want to make sure I'm delegating as well tasks that people can actually accomplish. I don't want to delegate a task that someone is unable to accomplish and set them up for failure. And then once I have checked all those boxes, I'm making sure that when I am delegating, I am explaining the task clearly, including its importance. I'm setting expectations as far as when this needs to be completed by. I'm not telling them necessarily how this needs to be completed. I'm giving them a little bit of autonomy, and there's different ways to skin a cat. And then I am making myself available as much as I am trying to save my time. In a sense, I am still available if there are questions or if there are follow-up on those tasks that I'm delegating. And then kind of lastly, and this is a part of it as well, and this is an internal thing, I'm learning to live with work that is perhaps not done quite to the level that I think I might do it, which I think is the biggest, or one of the biggest, certainly, hurdles as it relates to delegating, is being okay with work that is, I'm not going to say work that is not done to a certain standard, but with work that might not be done exactly how I would do it, or exactly to the level that I think I would do it at.
Yeah. There's so much goodness in there. A couple things that stand out for me. First of all, it leads to so many of our other courses, right? So the accountability course that we do, if once we delegate, then we have to do all of those follow-ups and holding people accountable to what they said they were going to do, things like that. Actually, that section, you started with making sure that the delegation is clearly understood, which our accountability session often suggests maybe not everybody is understanding it the same way you did it. The big one for me that stood out there, though, is that notion that you have to let them come up with the path. Like, we're going to delegate it. The biggest and richest learning for them is letting them figure out how they're going to accomplish. Us telling them how to do it is going to get us the same thing, and they're not actually going to learn much. So what we actually have to do is set the guardrails, if you will, as if you were driving down the road, but then let them figure out their path. figuring out the path of how they're going to do it is one of the biggest parts of learning. So I heard that in there. And then
Yeah.
went on, if depending on, you said, I got to be okay with the fact that it may not be done the way I do it. As long as it's in the guardrails, I love that you said we got to be okay with that. If it goes out of the guardrails, though, that links perfectly to another one of our sessions, which is the coaching piece. So it's the asking questions then about, help me understand how you came to this and why
Yeah.
do you think to do it that way and what ifs and all of those other questions. So if we set this up right, it actually could be really meaningful for people. But it's all prefaced on what you said is we're not just dumping work on their plate. This actually is somewhat of a strategic exercise. So what does this person need for growth themselves? And how is what I'm going to give them going to support that? So much stuff in there that I just loved hearing, and that there are linkages to great leadership and empowerment and engagement and motivation and all of those things. Yeah, I love that part of it for me.
Excellent.
What else is anything else that's hanging out there for you that, you know, is helping you and supporting you? I know you said that chunk, block, and tackle. Maybe what's that all about?
For me, that comes down to I make the connections there as it relates to another, again, kind of time management, personal effectiveness topic that we always talk to our clients about. And it's related to, I won't say procrastination, though I am a little bit
Okay.
sometimes of a chronic procrastinator, if I can say that. But I think why that happens sometimes is because a task, a project, a job seems so big
Mm,
at the outset. It seems almost there's no way I can climb that mountain. It's too big of a project. But if you are able to break that project up into more small, manageable pieces and continue to gain momentum as you're kind of checking those boxes one kind of chunk at a time, before you know it, you find yourself at the end of it and saying, oh, you know what? That really wasn't so bad.
mm,
And as far as the specific strategy that I'm adopted, and we've talked about this likely in the past as well, is that Pomodoro
mm.
technique, which is something, John, that I use almost daily when I sit down at my laptop and I've got something I've got to get through, or maybe I'm struggling a little bit to get started. I set the timer on my Apple Watch for 25 minutes.
Okay.
I turn notifications off on my phone. I close my email and I work. I do focused work for 25 minutes. The timer goes off. I take a 5-minute break. I get up. I grab a coffee. Maybe I do a couple push-ups or something. Then that timer goes off. Boom, back at notifications go back off. I do another 25 minutes of focused work. And typically I do that at least 4 times over,
Okay.
after which I'll take a longer break, maybe 25, 30 minutes. And more often than not, once I get to that point, this project, whether it's a proposal, whether it's putting together content for a program that we do, if I'm not done, I'm well on the way to being done.
Nice.
So that's what I talk about when I'm with that chunk block tackle.
Nice. And I think that actually relates back to that topic of delegation. One of the things that leaders and you and I might take for granted is we know exactly how we'd approach this task or project or whatever it is. And it wouldn't maybe even take us that long, but someone who hasn't built that capacity yet, it could seem like a really daunting task. One
Absolutely.
that then bringing in the Pomodoro effect, they have no idea how to get started on. And so
Yeah.
if we can really help them to chunk that out into more manageable tasks, that ought to be part of the delegation piece. And then just encourage them to just start
Yeah.
and try and see where you get. And that's where our support comes back in. And we can help them out. And love how these things all work together. So maybe just in a summary, if you could give our audience 2 things that they should do differently tomorrow, what would they be for you?
What would they be? They would be realistically, the Pomodoro, that one might be at the top of the list, that chunk block tackle. It is just getting started can be so hard. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to get the ball rolling. So that would be a big one. And then as it relates to kind of delegation would be that other point that I made, which is looking internally, and we're usually the issue ourselves, is finding a way within you to become again okay with work that is perhaps not done again quite to that level that you would, at least you think you would complete it to. It's still done to that standard that's acceptable, like you
Yep.
say, it's within those guardrails,
Yep.
but maybe not necessarily above and beyond. And that's not letting people off the hook and saying they were not holding them accountable still to quality work. That's just not necessarily putting our sensibilities on someone else.
Perfect. I love it. And the only thing I would add is, listen, we get why we sometimes don't delegate. That thought process that I can only imagine even you go through or have been going through. I could do this faster myself. I know it would get done right, and I don't need to teach anybody anything. And you know what? You'd get there. It'd be more burden on you and probably the family as you do it, but you'd get there, but then you'd be in the exact same cycle next time. And so I just get started. I would say to our audience, just get started in delegating. Learn to get comfortable with the idea that it's going to take longer. You're going to have to put in more effort to support your team members through it. But the long-term goal here is that you're creating capacity that you don't have right now. And so short-term pain for some long-term gain. And we really think that if you just focus on that a little bit, it's going to make your life better and theirs too. This has been fun. I'm so glad we got back at this, and we will be getting back in a more frequent cadence to this. But thanks for joining me here again, Alain. And have a good day.
My pleasure. It's great seeing you, John.
Bye for now.